Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Holding Every Rep Accountable and Keeping Them Motivated at Home or in Office. And we're going to be waiting a couple more moments to get everyone to join in, and we'll kick it off. And if you haven't done so already, if you could let the speakers know where you're joining from today, that'd be great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started as folks are joining. Again, thank you so much for joining everyone today to Holding Every Rep Accountable and Keeping Them Motivated at Home or in the Office. Today, I'm joined by Mark McWatters, the VP of Sales at Ambition, and Martin Roth, who's the Chief Revenue Officer at Levelset. In today's conversation, Martin and Mark will be discussing topics like how to ensure you have a stellar onboarding program for new reps and a plan to upskill existing reps in changing times, how to keep morale high, innovative ways to boost real-time internal KPI visibility and create a culture of real-time rep recognition, and why consistent coaching practice is vital to the survival of your sales organization. And the audience, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat along the way for the speakers, and we'll try to get to them throughout the session. And without further ado, I'd love to turn it over to Martin and Mark. Welcome. If you both would like to share a little bit about yourself before we kick it off, that'd be great. And Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Hi, everybody. I'm Mark McWatters. Hope everyone's having a nice start to their Tuesday. I am the VP of Sales here at Ambition. Ambition is gamification and coaching for metric-driven teams. So we know a thing about accountability and motivation. Obviously thrilled to be here with Martin. To give you a little backstory on me, kind of how I got to where I am, I started as an appointment setter at a mobile home company in college. Talk about your sexy first sales job. That was pre-SDR being a thing, at least in my world, and moved into some leadership roles. The first job out of school was in sales leadership for the retail side for AT&T. Before saying, man, how do I get into B2B sales? Like that's where I want to be. That's where the money was, especially coming out of AT&T. So went in as an individual contributor in an employee engagement consulting services company before coming to Ambition and starting out as an individual contributor here 4 years ago before now being in my role leading the sales and sales development team. So excited to be here. That's a little bit of my backstory. Martin, let's kick it over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. So Martin Roth, I'm out of New Orleans, although I'm currently in a hotel room in Houston. I was telling them I'm on my first client visit that I haven't done in over a year. I'm sure there's many executives here on the webinar that either just started visiting clients or traveling. It is refreshing. It's I forgot about all the creature comforts of travel for business, and I'm really happy to like go and meet clients in person. But anyway, I'm headquartered out of New Orleans, although we have an office in Austin, Texas. So I do split time between Austin and New Orleans. CRO at Levelset. Levelset is a software platform for construction payment. So we've been at this for about a decade now, and we help specialty contractors and building material suppliers. We are construction vertical specific SaaS software, everything related to construction payment. So lien rights management. We actually have payment rails. We do some materials financing. So all kinds of stuff we do now. And my background, I was first sales hire. I was one of the first handful of employees at the time. I don't know if I was like 5, 6, or 7. It was all, a bunch of people around the table at that point. But I built the entire revenue org. And, now we're at 250 people in the company and growing hand over fist. So a little bit of background on me. And I guess I've done every role on the revenue org. So I've been the SDR, I've carried the bag, I've been the frontline manager, ops, enablement, all of it. So I'm like deeply rooted in all of the ins and outs of how to run our revenue team. And I'm a student of sales and sales operations. And so this topic specifically is something that we definitely did the wrong way for a long time. And I feel like we're much better at it now, though you're never done. Like you're always on this quest to get better at accountability in high performing teams.
Great, man. I'm hearing you already admit that you've made a couple mistakes. I think we're in a good position where we've learned some of the things the hard way. Hopefully, we can help the audience maybe take the road easier path, if you will. But let's start with challenges. When Martin and I were talking ahead of this and thinking like, how do we put ourselves as much in the audience's position as possible and really try to give you all the context of where we are coming from. Like a main theme that I know we are hoping to achieve is to give you all real tactical guidance and examples. Let's make this like a fluff-free zone, if you will. But let's talk about challenges when it comes to accountability and motivation. Certainly, there's been a lot here in the last 18 months. Martin, why don't you kick us off with a challenge that you've seen sitting in your role, running a revenue organization through all the transition we've seen in the last 12, 18 months?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll go back to March. Well, actually, I'll go back to late 2019. So we raised our C round in late 2019, and we raised a round of funding so that we could continue to accelerate our revenue growth. And so we leaned into that round and scaled up the team. We had scaled up our team to, 70, 75 reps, I think, by when we brought on that March class. And then March 13th or March, I guess more specifically, March 16th, like everybody else, or almost everybody else in the country, we went completely remote overnight, which was a shock to our culture. And that's the understatement of a lifetime. Our org, we have an inside sales team. We will travel, as I am right now. We'll travel to go see customers, but our primary go-to-market is an SMB go-to-market. So we produce a lot of content. We drive a ton of leads. We convert those leads into subscription customers. And our average contract value for our SMB side of our business is about $4,000. Mid-market and strategic are bigger, obviously, but that's our bread and butter. Where SMB goes, the company goes. And so when we took an inside sales team that was exclusively in office, and my leadership style is very much a like walk the floor style leader. I love being in person. I love feeling the energy of the floor, being able to walk over and reward somebody face to face whenever they close a deal or hit a milestone. Having to go remote, just one of the things is like the recognition and maintaining the connection and the culture. And that was a difficult thing. And I think we've done well over the last 18 months to navigate through that, or I guess it's 14 months to navigate through that, but it was definitely choppy. And I would say we didn't get it all correct. And we definitely made some mistakes. I'd say that the hardest part is, look, practically speaking, you take an inside sales team. We had SDRs, we had, inside sales reps, many of whom are young in their career. They're in the first 2 or 3 years of their sales career. And let's just like call a spade a spade. You give a 25-year-old MacBook and a Salesforce license, and you go let them work from their couch with their 2 roommates and their dog. And you're like, okay, let's go. Am I going to expect the same amount of production from that person in that environment as I would from them in an office that's a little more controlled? That is a nerve-wracking. If you had asked me that before March 16, 2020, I would have been like, no way in hell. No way in hell. But there, so I think our team surprised us. And I've heard from many others that when they went remote, productivity actually went up. And people started to find their groove for a time. But after about 2 or 3 months, the reality started settling in that you're not going back to the office. That's when we started to see the dip. And that's when we needed to start taking action. That's when like culture really starts to come in. Are people hitting their numbers? Are people feeling fulfilled? Are they seeing the personal, professional, and financial success that they need for their career and their life? And so right in like Q3 of last year is when we kind of took it on the chin from a productivity standpoint and really had to get serious about how do we hold, accountability is such a forceful word to use, but it's like it's everything related to building and scaling a predictable, repeatable revenue engine that has a high performing sales team. We had to really confront ourselves and look ourselves in the mirror Q3 last year and get it right.
I think that's pretty consistent across the board of just hearing from clients and also thinking about our own use cases. As a sales leader, just like you said, I want to be high-fiving people. I want to celebrate. I crave that energy. Like I was telling my wife the other day, I'm just getting a beer with a guy I hadn't seen in forever. And I'm like, babe, for me, this just fills me up. Like I need this. And so the idea of sending everybody home while my team probably felt pretty comfortable with it, it was me maybe that had some of the insecurities around making that work. And so when it came to that Q3 timeframe and the novelty of the work from home, the rally of like, we're all in this together, starts to wear off. Then I know for me as a sales leader, I started to think, how do I have a culture at Ambition where people do feel motivated, recognized, rewarded, even in this crazy, difficult time, but do that in a way that makes it a competitive advantage for us that we can not only survive, but thrive in this new normal and do it in a way that like isn't cheesy, right? How do we get people bought in a way that isn't just like an amazing comp plan? Yeah, you got to put that together. But how do we create those clear expectations? How do we create a coaching culture that's built on accountability and encouragement to help us compete and continue to, build on the hyper growth? You mentioned people come to work for your team because they want to be in that environment. It's the same thing here, right? And so momentum is so important in how that gets built. But back to the challenge of culture was really tough, still is a challenge for a lot of companies and a lot of leaders. And ensuring that your team is motivated and bought into the most important initiatives, concepts to the sales team. And in our position, things change so fast in a company that's growing so quickly. Keeping people all aligned to those changes were very real to us and still are very real to us here in 2021. I know you and I both have had to hire as well in this 2020, 2021. So Martin, maybe any challenges that you've seen specific to hiring before we get into some of the answers, keep setting the challenge stage?
Oh yeah, when I definitely want to. I think this is a good topic to start with because I'm sure there's a lot of pains felt in the crowd with very personal experiences that they went through with their teams or with their peers on the executive team, like trying to figure out how to still build and scale an organization and go achieve your strategic goals, but being apart, not seeing anybody in the company for for many, it was like 6, 8, 9 months. Maybe some of you are still remote and still haven't seen anybody that you worked with. And that's tough. That's tough on everybody. Specifically with onboarding. So we have across the whole company, I think the stat, our VP of People Ops was saying that's like 55 or 60% of our team, our entire team was hired during the pandemic.
Wow.
Which means that they were hired in basically a remote environment, knowing that at some point in the imminent future, like not any specific timeline, we will start to go back to the office. And we have started to in the flex schedule, but it's still predominantly remote. We just started a class yesterday. Actually, we had, I think it was 8 or 9 people start on the team yesterday in our May hiring class. And 100% of those folks were remote. They started from their own house. And we've done this, every month we've done, however many days, I guess like 10 or 11 hiring classes now. And so we've got our rhythm, but we had to completely change how we think about engaging, especially sales reps in their first week. It used to be, because New Orleans is HQ, we would bring everybody to New Orleans. We call it like the drink the Kool-Aid week. They get the Levelset swag, the CEO's there, we do the dinners and the happy hours and the breakfast, and it's very interactive. It's a combination of lecture style, role play, self-learning, self-study, peer-led coaching, all kinds of ways to get them integrated with the team. They're seeing people, they're meeting people. It's very social. Because let's be honest, in the first week, the people learn, but they don't. The most important thing is that they attach to the org. That's what we've had to figure out, is how do we get new hires to attach to the org as quickly as possible. We could sit here and debate all day long about how many days do you wait to put a rep on the phone? How many days do you wait to give them real leads versus recycled leads? How many days do you wait to put them through demo certification? I think all of that stuff is at least secondary, or at most secondary, if not further down the line. We just put an intense focus on get them to attach to the org. If they attach to the org and the why and the purpose, and they learn to trust the team around them, then everything else kind of falls into place.
I think it ought to muted me there. So you mentioned before that you have an expectation setting document, like values and skills. So I'd love to hear a little more about that too.
Well, of course, yeah. So anytime, this is like, we have the luxury in sales of being the most metrics driven of any department in the company. And that's probably the same in sales at almost every other company. And specifically with inside sales, whether it's an SDR team or a SMB account executive team, or even a mid-market account executive team, you should know what good looks like. You should have the archetype for what a successful rep does daily, weekly, monthly, what their habits are, what numbers they should be hitting. If you're super early stage, sure, it may not be as well baked, but you can make your best guess of what you think good looks like. And you should be very obvious and upfront about what that is, even in the interview process. So take hiring for SDRs. My heart goes out to every SDR in the world all the time, because that is a hard and thankless job. It is hard.
And one of the most important jobs in any company.
No doubt about it. And it is the launching point for so many great sales leaders and great individual contributors. But it is a hard and thankless jaunt through 9 to 15 months of just grunt work. And I like to try to scare candidates away in the interview process. And we're very specific. Hey, look, here are the expectations. It's a certain number of minimum calls. Here's how many demos you have to set. Here's how many opportunities you have to create, how much revenue you have to source. Here's who you're going to be working with. Here are the ideal customer profiles you're going to be calling on. And if any of this feels like it's uncomfortable now, that is going to fester in you until you leave, basically. Yep. Because it's just you have to know what you're getting into. So immediately after getting reps to attach to the org, the second thing is making sure that the expectations are clear and that you're unflinching about those expectations. And you have to be in your culture. You have to know, it's going to be defined by what you tolerate and what you manage to. And so, for us, we have specific expectations that we manage to, and that becomes an important part of, especially accountability and managing the team.
So to expound upon that and tell you a little bit about the Ambition use case here around onboarding challenge. So I had a new hire on my team who was starting the day, I'm in Nashville, the day that Nashville shut down. So he had just moved here from Boston with his fiance. We're all excited to get together. The first day I have to call him and say, hey man, it sounds like we're going to do this remote. They say that an employee is never more engaged than their first day of work. And my heart just broke that this guy had to be remote on Zoom in day one, right? And so but to your point, what we often think about here too is just setting clear expectations during the interview process, during the day-to-day, in this example of sales development. And how do they know what a good day looks like without Mark telling them, or Chris, who is our sales development leader, telling them? How do we put that in front of them and enable them essentially to own their day? Now, there's an old school sales thought process that probably someone on this is going, Mark, that's actually called micromanagement. I would tell you, wake up, bro. It's 2021. That is actually giving them the keys to be successful, especially in these early sales roles where you're green, you're brand new to what this looks like. To your point around sales development, I like the Mike Tyson quote, I think it was, about everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Like sales development, you're taking shots all day long, right? And so how do you keep that person engaged to keep going? And the answer is really clear expectations on what that good day looks like, even if the outcome isn't achieved in that day. So for our sales development team here at Ambition, they have a meeting a day mentality that they talk about, where their scorecard that they use is built on 60 outbound dials. We do hold them to an actual dial number. Out of those 60, we expect them to connect with 4 prospects. They have a talk time expectation too of 3 minutes. And we track this through a sales engagement tool that we also use as a dialer. Mm-hmm. And then we also expect them to add 25 new contacts from outreach that we use into sequence. So if you're a sales development rep at Ambition, that is what a good day looks like. Mm-hmm. During the interview process, that is also shared with you, right? They get here day 1. We have a scorecard they walk into. They know if they have had a good day or a bad day. And that kind of transparency is what I think a incoming SDR should expect. Like if you have a sales development, or if you have a friend who's wanting to interview to be a sales development rep, I think they should ask, tell me what a good day looks like in a sales development role at Ambition. And if that answer is muddy, that sales development candidate should go find the next sales development job, because you need that kind of guidance, especially in that kind of role. So onboarding in this environment is all about those clear expectations. So, or go ahead.
I was going to say it doesn't even stop at onboarding. Even we think about so you have the first 30 days, and then you have the next 90 days, and then you have the remainder of their time at the company. And it's not like the expectations go away. They actually stay, and they become part of habits. Taking it outside of the SDR function, even for account executives, that's like one of my favorite moments, because it's always an honest moment, is when you bring somebody in who has selling experience and you get I don't want to be micromanaged. Okay, fair. I understand your perspective. Here's how we run the team, though. And this is my advice to every other sales leader that I work with, is or that I know, or that I benchmark with, or that we just over beers talking about what best practice is. You have got to be deliberate about what your expectations are. So even for our SMB inbound account executives, we know that they're going to get between 175 to 190 leads every single month, and I have an expectation for they got to have time to first touch or speed the lead within 1 hour, and we have rules of engagement around all this stuff. And but if they are doing that, they have to set at least 2 opportunities a day. If they're setting 2 opportunities a day, then they should be setting about 1 demo a day. If they're setting 1 demo a day, they should be running somewhere between 16 to 17 demos a month, and that's going to net them in the neighborhood of 7 to 8 customers, which is how they build their successful month. If their average contract value comes in at like right around the 4,000 number, that is average. Now, that's what the archetype looks like. Sure, you're going to have some reps who have like that $25,000 outlier deal that comes in, and then they're not. You almost every time a rep brings in a big deal, and then you look at the productivity the week after, and their feet are up on the desk, and they're just they're coasting. It happens every time, and then
there's a gap.
They hurt themselves. I was going to use an expletive. I'll be tactful here. They hurt themselves in the following month, and they're like, oh man, what happened? And it's like, well, start with the outcome in mind. If you didn't hit your number, how many demos did you run? Oh, you didn't run enough demos? Well, how many opportunities did you set? Oh, you didn't set enough opportunities? Well, how many phone calls did you make? Oh, you didn't hit your 40 phone calls a day? Sure, you may be able to get to 2 opportunities on a day in 5 phone calls, but like you are not going to build repeatable, sustainable success with days like that. It just doesn't work. Everybody knows sales is a numbers game, and having the metrics transparent and clear and regularly reviewed one-to-one with the frontline manager is like super, super critical to consistent performance.
So I want to get all over that. But before we go there, I'm sure there's someone out there who's thinking, okay, Martin, okay, Mark, like I get it. I need the good day, bad day. I need the clear KPIs, but I'm in a company of, 12 people and I'm the Martin who wants to be first and take it. What advice do you give a sales leader or maybe an IC who doesn't have the formula yet? How do they get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are challenges at every stage of building an organization. The challenges we're talking about, Mark, are specific to companies who have product market fit, who are scaling. It's like not founder-led selling. It's not even like founder plus founding team-led selling. You can take people off of the street, pull them into the organization, train them up, and they can go sell complete strangers this product that you have. Once you have that, then you can get into like, what's your culture? What are the non-negotiables with respect to metrics? So like, don't put the cart before the horse. And my advice to most people, I remember early on, well, first of all, when I started at Levelset, I didn't know what SaaS was. I didn't know what ARR was. We were bootstrapped. We just knew that we liked recurring revenue or people that paid us every month. And we said, we want to go get more of this. And so we were just really explicit about what success was, which was at the time we called it the Dream 100, which I just built a list of these are the 100 logos. And I literally printed them out, the logos on like printer paper and taped them to the wall by my desk. And I just called. I made sure that I touched every single one of them every single week in some way, handwritten letter, email, phone call, whatever. In some way, I was touching those logos every week until they said, yes, we want to do business, or no, we don't. And in 14 months, we closed 14 of them out of 100. And that was our first, like, I don't know, I can't remember, a $1.5 or $2 million in ARR. And this is a long time ago. This is like 2013, 2014. So don't quote me on these numbers, but like the point of this is not specifically about, oh, I need to go get a Dream 100. I need to do a touch point it was just, we had a goal. We had some rigor to how we wanted to approach those accounts, right? And we knew that we were going to have to, early on, we were going to have to go still trying to find product market fit. So we had to go, figure out what the product was. And sometimes you got to sell a little vaporware to like, and then go back to the team and then say, hey, can we build this? And then figure out the price. And so that's the hard part, is like what you're asking brings me back to some really fundamental conversations that we were having, just trying to find the market. And I remember it was SaaStr. That was the publication that like opened my eyes to everything related to SaaS and ARR and all this stuff.
Yep,
and I remember like reading these articles being like, well, we need to have, like, I was just so caught up with trying to build this structure when it's like, no, just focus on getting revenue. Go focus on getting revenue. And then at some point, you're going to sit with your executive team or the leadership team, and you're going to say, okay, we need to like make sense of what this business is so that we can get more people to do that have the same success that we've had. And at that point, then you can start to codify, okay, here were the patterns that we saw to go get success.
See, what I also hear is just the transparency around the logos on the wall. Everybody knows who you're going after, and therefore there's accountability to, is Martin getting it done or not? And so the being able to have that level of transparency, whether you're the 7th person hired or you're the 100th salesperson hired, is very relevant to how do we make sure everybody knows where everybody stands. We create that level of transparency and visibility, and that fuels doing more of the right behaviors, which in your case, super early, is make sure the top 100 get touched.
Right.
So let's take this. You mentioned earlier about going into the one-on-one, the frontline manager coaching, which I think is a critical topic. Before we go into that, I want to summarize a little bit of what was already shared, in that one of the first things to focus on in this work from home, hybrid, ever-changing work environment to drive culture is transparency and accountability around what right looks like, whether it be for sales development. We do this for mostly a mid-market sales motion that we have here. And the quick visual into that is we hold sales reps accountable to 3 external meetings per day. They have an outbound dial expectation around a named account list, essentially their top 100. We expect them to talk to a certain amount out of that top 100. And then they do have an total activity expectation, which is like a call plus email plus LinkedIn touch. But the takeaway here is that figure out what that good day or good week looks like at an activity level, but start, like Martin said, at the outcome and work your way backwards. If you don't have what that looks like, then I encourage you to start somewhere. You probably have a general idea of what that looks like. Start measuring it, because what gets measured gets managed. There's your webinar cliche sentence, but it's true. And that kind of visibility will start to build some accountability to the activities that you know or think are most effective. But let's get into one-on-one, or not just one-on-one. Let's start high level. So let's talk about, Martin, your coaching motion, if you will. So CRO, leader of leaders, a lot of coaching happening in this newer, challenging, remote, work from home, hybrid, about to be back in office. What does that look like for you as a CRO?
Yeah. So it starts with, I think, having a coaching culture and setting the expectation that coaching is a significant part of working and being part of the team at Levelset. We have, it's kind of cheesy, but we have our sales success culture, which has 3 pillars: personal, professional, and financial success, which are subjective and individual to each rep and each manager, each frontline manager, and each director. And so we talk a lot about sales success culture. We also have the formula: your results are the function of your effort times your learning and development. And that's important because learning and development is a significant piece of our culture. And so we even have a core value company-wide that it's learn enough, which is this idea that, like, when we do things as a company, we come correct, we come prepared, we put the time in outside of work to learn enough so that we can be deliberate in our actions and make smart decisions. So there's like a culture of learning and culture of coaching that you have to be open to. That's the first thing. Tactically, what do the rhythms look like? Now, I'll be transparent here. So recently, now I've kind of stood up our organization, and I've got 5 direct reports. I've got 3 directors of sales, 1 for SMB, 1 for mid-market and strategic, and then 1 for account management, because all of our expansion and upsell is done on the revenue side, not on the CS side. And CS is not part of my org. We have an entire CS structure. And then I have a director of enablement and a director of operations. So I get it. Like, I have the luxury of being a little later stage, and we have a ton of support around us. Wasn't always that way. Now, I'll also remind you, my style as a leader is a walk the floor leader. I love being in the trenches. I love the deal. I'm a salesperson. I can't help myself. I want to be on the phone with customers as much as I can. The problem, and I'm sure a lot of people in the crowd here are in the same seat that I'm in, which is like, you just get further and further and further removed from the frontline work. And so when I think about the rhythms and the culture, establish a coaching culture, set the expectation from everybody in the company that everybody in the org, rather, in the revenue org, that it is incumbent upon all of us to be familiar with the details of our team's numbers and metrics and pipeline, and then build the operating rhythms to support a coaching function. So we have call reviews pretty much every day, but the specific teams have different days where they'll do call reviews, and it's 30 to 45 minutes. Reps submit calls. We use Exec Vision, which is kind of like Gong or Chorus. And they submit calls, they review calls. We also have asynchronous coaching where reps can submit calls and they'll get feedback on those calls in the tool. I'll jump in there from time to time and I'll give feedback on different calls if I can, whenever I'll make time and actually go do the asynchronous coaching there. We have a weekly pipeline meeting as a leadership team, and then each team has their own pipeline meeting. And then obviously every single sales rep has a one-on-one with their frontline manager every single week. And then beyond that, I've got office hours each week. it's like I feel like a politician sometimes, because I remind the team over and over and over again. It's like, if you're struggling or you're frustrated, raise your hand. You have a team around you that cares about your success. Your results are the function of your effort times your learning and development. Grinding your hands to the bone by just making dials and thinking you're going to work through your slump never works. It never works. You've got to raise your hand and you've got to seek help. And in most cases, I use a lot of sporting analogies. In my leadership style, I say, if you forgot how to hit a curveball, there's only one way to learn how to hit a curveball. You got to go get in the batting cages and you got to go practice hitting it. Don't wait till the game to go relearn how to hit a curveball. And the same goes for sales. If you see, for example, like in our coaching culture, we have the different metrics in the funnel. And so maybe you have a rep that's like really strong on close rate, but they're weak on setting up ops. Well, you know what we're going to focus on in the one-on-one? We're going to listen to some calls and we're going to talk about how you're qualifying and how you're setting up opportunities. Or vice versa. If they're generating a ton of ops, but their close rate sucks, well, how are you running your demos? Invite me to a demo. Let me shadow it. Let me give you some call coaching or demo coaching after that demo. Are you asking for the money in the right way? Are you using our playbook for how we close deals? So there's a lot packed into there. I think it starts with establishing a culture, a coaching culture that's also peer-to-peer coaching, not just manager to rep coaching. And then you build an operating rhythm and you build a tech stack around your team to support that coaching culture.
Yeah, the operating rhythm. I love that verbiage, because I think that's certainly how so you have these 5 directors. For context for me, so I have one. So I have sales and sales development. I have a guy who leads a sales development team, and then all the account executives roll directly to me. So a little bit of both here. And our operating rhythm is on Monday morning, we have a Monday sales meeting where the primary conversation is around forecast and new initiatives that have come up in the past 7 days. Maybe a new competitor, a new learning from a deal, a clip from our call recording of how someone handled an objection. There's usually a theme added in that Monday. I have all my one-on-ones with all the AEs plus the leader of sales development on Monday and Tuesday. Why? I want to talk to them early and make sure we're all aligned moving through the week. On Thursday, we have a game film, which is just 1 hour of call recording breakdown. Those are typically led by the account executives. So more peer-to-peer accountability. They're giving each other feedback. I will warn you that at first it was way too rah-rah rainbow, like people being nice to each other. And that isn't the point, right? Like, we're trying to get better. To your point about establishing a coaching culture, like, people, if everyone's perfect, we're not getting any better. Like, let's give each other suggestions. But anyways, on Friday, we have a GTM wrap up, which is sales, CS, marketing, product. It's a lot of the company together talking about wins and takeaways from the week. So our operating rhythm, we're really trying to build in this alignment throughout, especially in this work from home environment. I have worried that we are changing too much too fast. If we change something in our sales process, if we change something to even how we have it built in Salesforce, if we change the way we qualify a certain kind of lead, there are so many new things happening that as a leader, I think, how do I communicate these over and over and over again? Because I remember carrying a bag as a frontline seller, and it's really damn hard to keep up with all that is changing so quickly. Even the little things like Salesforce documentation, right? It's like, how to, as a leader, now I understand how important that was. As a frontline, maybe I didn't totally get it. And how do you make that easier on your team? I'll give a small plug for a product called Scratchpad that has made that 1,000,000 times easier for our team. But to the point of operating rhythm, we started on Monday and we ended on Friday, and the message is very, very similar throughout the week. The one other piece that we do, we use Slack, and in Slack we use a free plugin called GeekBot that will send 3 questions every morning at 7 a.m. local. And it's just asking, what did you accomplish yesterday? What do you plan to accomplish today? What else do you want to share with the team? Usually takes a seller or an SDR all of 5 minutes to fill that out. But again, it's driving more of that visibility and transparency amongst the team. And the more you foster that culture, the more the team starts to build the peer-to-peer accountability. And to go like sports analogy, I just rewatched The Last Dance again, which for those that haven't seen it, it's basically Chicago Bulls heyday, Michael Jordan winning 1 million titles. And why are they so successful? You watch those videos, the team is holding each other accountable. It's very little of the coach having to drive the direction, right? So how do you foster that coaching culture, that operating cadence of visibility, of accountability, but foremost, or I shouldn't say foremost, but equally as important, of the encouragement, the motivation, making it positive to where the team feels safe. Martin, one thing you had mentioned to me previously was the idea of this like psychological safety. I think you meant that's how you put it. So like, tell me how you foster that for your team.
So humans are herd animals. And when you're leading a team, it's like, what do herd animals fear most is they fear separation from the herd. And as sales reps, when you're carrying a bag, how do you separate yourself from the herd? And the number one thing that separates a salesperson from the herd is poor performance, right? Oh, everybody else is hitting quota, or all these reps are performing well. I'm not performing well. I'm going to get put on a PIP. I'm going to get put out to pasture. I'm not going to be on the team. They're going to look at me like a bad seller. I mean, there's a litany of anxieties that follow either negative performance or maybe even like a coaching call, a peer-led coaching call where somebody just gets roasted on how they approach and handle objection. And it's like, you're never perfect at this, but it should be that your culture and your environment cultivates a spirit of psychological safety where they can feel comfortable being vulnerable with their peers or with their manager without fear of repercussion. And so that comes back to transparency, clear expectations, and you got to make sure that like you treat people like humans and treat them with respect and all that stuff. So with respect to coaching, it's as a leader, it becomes really, really important to be able to deliver critical feedback and constructive feedback. And sometimes it's metrics based because it's objective and you can look at like calls and activity and meetings booked and deals closed, but that's never the whole story. And you have to manage the human and coach the human, not just people aren't robots. And so, this gets into a little bit more of the culture stuff about how much space do you give people for PTO or handling personal business or whatever. Like that's on each of us as leaders. But as it relates to coaching and leading an accountable team, people will be accountable to each other so long as they have the psychological safety to not be separated from the herd. And that's our job as leaders, to cultivate that feeling of belonging and knowing that they're safe and that they can be vulnerable and they can challenge each other and they can take criticism without feeling like they're being excommunicated.
I love that. So one way that we also try to build that here at Ambition, and one thing that I have certainly put a stake in the ground on this opinion of that, the one-on-one, let's focus on the one-on-one coaching specifically for a minute so me coaching an account executive. One way to foster this sense of their own ownership and their own safety is that the employee actually leads the one-on-one.
Yeah.
Now, it is based on questions that I have picked, but they're pretty broad, and I let them pick what we're going to talk about. Now, if this happens over and over and over again, and they're avoiding the topic that really should be discussed, then of course I'm going to interject and ask that we discuss that specific topic. But the idea or the approach is pretty simple. Leaders, you can dictate the initiatives, the questions, what needs to be asked, but empower your employee to own the answer. I know I've had dozens of examples where I know I need to coach someone about something that went wrong And opposed to me just jumping right in and telling them what went wrong, I just say, hey, what went well on that call? They tell me, hey, what didn't go that well? Mm-hmm. They end up falling on the sword and talking through what struggle they had. And then rather than me telling them what to go do, I just say, okay, well, like, how do we cover that now? Maybe we missed something on that call, but how do we make that up? And when you empower the employee to provide the answer, they oftentimes have a better idea than I do. Mm-hmm. And that's how we start to, again, just continue to empower the employee and build that. Yes, it's accountability, but it's accountability that they own. It's not something that Ambition is just saying, this is exactly what you have to do all the time.
Right. I think it's a good, there's a book, we have our leadership development program within Levelset that we take frontline reps and coach them into being managers or being on enablement or operations, whatever their career path is, all part of our sales success culture, right? But we part of the obligation of leadership development is because we learn enough, we read books. And one of the books we read in this session, the spring session of our leadership development program, we're reading The Coaching Habit. I can't remember who the author is, Michael something or other. But anyway, The Coaching Habit, the book, it's not even about sales coaching. It's just about being a leader in general. And it's all about how to ask good questions so that people come to the conclusion on their own. And there's the analogy, like at a cocktail party, if you're talking with somebody and you're talking the whole time and you walk away and you're like, man, that was a great conversation. I really thought that was wonderful. And the other person's probably thinking like, man, this guy's a jerk. He didn't stop talking the whole time. The same is true for leaders. If you go into a one-on-one, it's like, and by the way, it's everything in my body to stop myself from jumping in on a pipeline review or in a demo. Like if I'm shadowing a demo with a rep, I have to tie my hands together so that I don't jump in and start and take control. And I have to fight my own nature because if you've done it and you know how to make it happen, you just want to do it. But that's never going to let the person learn. Never. I think that's a great call out. I want to give, going back to some tactical advice. I love how you said one-on-ones have rigor. Very similar to me. When I was frontline management, I was doing more frontline management. We always started out with, where are you at on the month? What's your target? What's your plan to fill the gap? And a brief look at a pipeline. So in a 45-minute one-on-one, it took no more than 10 minutes. It was rigorous. Once we got past that, it was the same structure. What's going well? What's not going well? And is there anything specific that you want to discuss in this one-on-one that I can support you with? And then you just let them talk. And when they talk and you say, and what else? And what else? And what else after that? And that same idea translates into call reviews, just like your example, where you say, well, what do you think went well on that call? What do you think didn't go well? They know the playbook. If you've got the materials, they know what's good, right? We all know what's good, but it takes a moment to separate yourself from the work and look back at yourself. And then hopefully your team is self-aware to say like, oh, okay, I see what I did wrong on this call. I should have handled I shouldn't have caved on price. Like that's one of the easy ones that comes up all the time. Oh, that price is bad. Well, what you want a discount? It's like, no, stick to your guns. Like, but they know that every time they know that they did every one of our reps. If we go back to one of those calls, they're like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, ugh, yes.
So we sell to sales leaders primarily. And so the best part of that is they get it, right? They know the game. They answer the cold call. They know a good discovery. They respect the process, but also they know how to play the end of the conversation, right? And so, being able to review some of those and to coach a rep on how to properly respond to those questions is always an interesting conversation, and one that they're usually like, damn it, I know how I should have handled that. So, all right, I'm a Crowdcast first timer, and I know we missed some questions here, so I want to hop into a couple of these questions that came up. And Martin, I'll let you take the first one.
We had one. I just wanted to touch this with only 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
Before we get into questions. We were talking this morning about keeping people motivated, and especially in a remote environment, when you're going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, and it's just like, sometimes it's just a slog. And I feel that. I get Zoom fatigue. We all get Zoom fatigue. But I wanted to offer one tip that has helped a ton. And we both connected on this, and we were like, yes, that is a huge hack to motivate. So going back to psychological safety, we do a ton, sales success culture, we do a ton of celebrating bright spots. And we even manufacture them, right, if we have to. And so every $100,000 that gets booked, lifetime ARR by a single rep, we celebrate it as a milestone. We have, trophies and swag and different things that we reward with. We have a quota club every single month that now that we're, for those who are comfortable with it, we will actually go in person and go to lunch to like a nice place and celebrate those that hit their quota. But even more like into the day-to-day, we use Slack as our inter-office communication, and we use Salesforce as our CRM. And I can't remember if they're directly connected or if we're using Zapier, which is a tool that connects to platforms. But whenever you close a deal in Salesforce and hand it off, we have a sales customer success handoff channel. And all it does is just post the details of that deal, and there's notes, and we talk about the pain we're solving, and we talk about suggestions for how CS can make this customer successful. And the sales customer success handoff channel is an addiction for me and like everybody at the company, because it's literally the money channel. You just see the money coming into the organization when you see handoff after handoff. And every time a deal hits, there's just like a cascade of GIFs and congratulations and high fives or virtual high fives. But more than anything, our CEO on almost every single deal will go in there and he'll say, great job, or he has like a custom emoji that only the CEO uses, and he'll post the emoji. Even like on an SDR handoff, if there's a really good meaty handoff, he'll go in there and he'll just pop that emoji in. And you would think that he's giving out like Christmas candy or something. Every rep that's like, oh, I got like Scott's emoji on this handoff. There's little hacks like that are totally free and take very little amount of time, but make celebration very public. And the more you do that, you reduce people's anxiety, you increase their psychological security and safety, and you celebrate their bright spots, you get them to attach to the org. That's ultimately what accountability is about.
One, you should rename it the Money Channel. I like that. And then the lesson is that create that recognition all the way to the top. Whether it's in Slack, we do the exact same thing using our own product. Whether it's in Slack or it's in Teams or it's in whatever communication channel your company uses most, find a way to get as senior of an executive as possible in that channel, and all they have to do is use an emoji, and it takes them 2 seconds, right? Or they can write good job, or they can reply to the email. But that level of visibility up and down is so motivating to the frontline reps. So for the executive audience that's out there, if you're not already plugged in, ask your sales leader how you can be, because your reaction may feel like nothing to you, but it can be everything to them. And there are really quick, easy ways to do this in front of the, depending on your company size, but the entire department, the entire org, the entire company. And there's so much magic in that recognition at a public level. So thank you for bringing that back, because it's definitely a good point here. All right, question real quick that came up that we started to hit on. What are some of the primary topics that you leverage in your one-on-one? So I know you mentioned what went well, what didn't go well. You have the pipeline at the beginning of what can we expect and how do you plan to make up. Is there anything else that maybe your directors have with frontline sales leaders that is consistently covered?
Yeah, so between frontline manager and rep, I'll address that one. Between director and frontline manager, it's a little different. It's more team based, and they'll go into rep by rep and who's doing well and who's not doing well. And then my expectation is that everyone is able to plug in and go even deal by deal through pipeline, including me. Like in my opinion, a successful selling organization, nobody is off the hook for the occasional, like up at 11:30 at night, going deal by deal through Salesforce because you've got to go make a number. Like That's just the work. You don't ever, I don't think that ever goes away as long as you're in sales leadership. But as it specifically relates to sales manager and frontline manager, so we use Ambition as a tool, quick plug. And one of the cool things about Ambition is that all of our metrics for the funnel, calls, talk time, opportunities created, demos set, demos completed, which is like, are they actually showing up to the demos, and the ratio, and then how many customers and how much bookings have you brought in. And so it's a rolling 30-day. And so what we'll look at in a one-on-one, not every one-on-one, but at least one of the one-on-ones each month, you should be looking at your rolling 30-day. We call it a player's card, but basically, what's your what do your stats look like, and where are you strong and where are you weak? And I think I touched on this earlier in this conversation, which is that if somebody's good at closing but not good at setting up, then that's where you're going to direct your attention. And so there's this idea of like metrics-led coaching. And if my advice is that if you have a really metrics-led coaching session, you probably want to go easy on that the following week. And you should be meeting every week with your direct reports. But if you go really metrics led, then you want to follow up on it, but like make that 5 minutes of the conversation lean more into like personal, professional development style things. And our categories are almost always in the pillars of sales success, which is personal success, professional success, and financial success. That's kind of the guidelines for how we do one-on-one coaching, which includes metrics-based coaching, but is not exclusive to that.
Hyper tactical people. I hope you took that down. The only part of ours that is a little different than what I shared earlier. My first question is always, please list last week's highlights and lowlights, because as a sales leader, I really just want to know the most important good and bad things that have happened. I probably heard about them in Slack, you call me or whatever, but I need those repeated. So that's how we start. Another example I'll use quickly is that we have a stage in our sales process called Champion's Choice Confirm, which basically means that Martin told Mark Ambition he wants to buy Ambition. He needs to go get Susan's approval. So we have a champion in the deal, Champion's Choice Confirm. An initiative for me is, how do I get those deals from Champion's Choice Confirm to close one as quickly as possible? Because in that example, it shouldn't be if they're going to buy, it's when they're going to buy, right? And so in our one-on-ones, I have a question around Champion's Choice Confirmed deals, which Ambition pulls up. And then we're able to talk through those deals and what do they like about the deal, what do they not like about the deal, and how can I help them in the deal? So to give you some more tactical advice on how we use those questions in a one-on-one. So I know we're bumping right up against time, like two sales leaders would. We could probably sit here and chit chat on shop all day long. To tie this off on accountability and motivation, you heard us talk about create transparency around what right looks like. Figure out what that sales formula looks like, whether it's daily or weekly, around activities that lead to the outcomes. Like Martin said, start with the outcome. Create a consistent coaching culture where people feel safe, employee-led, regular coaching conversations. And then ultimately, once you have that metrics, that what right looks like, you have the consistent coaching, that wins in a remote world or in an in-office world or in a hybrid world. And so hopefully you have some tactical takeaways of how we lead our teams. I'm sure you can find us both on LinkedIn. But Martin, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Chris, what have I left out as I wrap this?
No, I think, I just want to point out a couple of things that I took away from it that I thought were important were, as we talk about coaching culture, making sure it's also peer-to-peer. I think Martin mentioned, I love that. We do that here at Revenue Collective, and it's really valued here as a part of our support system. And the psychological safety is a huge one too. Making sure that your executives are involved from the top up is what you mentioned with celebrating success. Get them involved, even if it's an emoji. I love that. I know Sam does that a lot here at Revenue Collective, so that resonates here with me, how our executives lead as well. So I appreciate you both joining today. Thank you so much for all of the knowledge. And to everyone who joined, thank you so much as well. The registration link will turn into the replay. I know there's a lot of helpful information in this session that you can always turn back to and take a look at again. So once again, thank you so much, Mark and Martin. It's a pleasure, and have the rest of the afternoon to yourself.
See you later.
Thanks. Everybody.